December meeting of the Oak Grove Community Council. Thanks for joining us. First up, I'd like to ask the board members to introduce themselves, and so I will stop sharing for just a moment and allow each of our board members to introduce themselves. First off, I'm Joseph Edge. I am the chair, and I live in the River Forest neighborhood. Valerie?
I'm Valerie Chapman. I'm the vice chair, and I live half a block from the trolley trail on Evergreen Street.
Jane? You are muted.
I just had the volume turned way down. I wasn't muted. Can you hear me?
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yes, I can.
I live on Jane Civiletti. I live at the intersection of Fair Oaks Ave and Oak Grove Boulevard.
And Jane is our treasurer.
Thank you.
Jan?
I am Jan Lindstrom. I am the secretary. I live on Laurelwood near River Road. I was going to say at the corner of Hope and Fear, but that's another matter entirely.
Jim?
I am Jim Meyer. I live on the corner of Oak Grove Boulevard and River Forest Drive.
Greg?
Greg Wennison, Director at Large. I live on Oak Grove Boulevard between Laurie and Fair Oaks.
Thank you, everybody. Let's see. Let's share my screen again. Sharing full screen, or is that? So I just want to announce to everybody that we are recording as we move forward. And then the first thing I want to do is turn it over to Jan Lindstrom to announce attendance for the last meeting. We used to do minutes, but now with the video recording, we just do attendance checks. And then we also have an announcement about upcoming elections and a special election tonight. So Jan, take it away. You are muted. Jan, you are muted.
No, it said unmute on my screen, but you're the sovereign unmuter. So I think can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay. We do, for anyone who isn't aware, we don't have minutes any longer, but we do have these videos for anyone who wants to watch it twice. Or, if you missed it, you can watch it. And there is a link on our website where the minutes are to go on to the YouTube channel. And then you can view, I think we started in June. It takes us a couple days to get the link up there, but that is in lieu of minutes. And I'm sorry, I apologize. I don't have a report tonight on attendance from last month. It was pretty similar to this month, but I will have an updated report because I'm kind of overhauling the whole system and doing a lot of changes. And so I will have a bigger and better report, probably emailed out, and then I'll follow up at the next meeting. And then in terms of elections, Joseph, do you want to talk about the calendar, or what do you want to specifically?
I had a slide up that just announced the calendar dates, for the upcoming regular election cycle. But we will announce that again, I guess, towards the end. The main thing was the special election. Yes. We have a vacancy in an at-large directorship. Jason Schrappel did resign, and so we have some business to conduct tonight.
Yes, so we do have enough people, I believe, for a quorum. Is that right, Joseph? 19 voting members on last count, so.
Yeah, I think we're covered. So the procedure is that the board has nominates a prospect to for the vacancy, and then we would ask if there are any nominations from the floor. And so, at our most recent board meeting, we nominated Rich Nippon, who we have in attendance tonight, and we appreciate his willingness to step up and fill this vacancy. So I guess we would ask at this point, are there any nominations from the floor for to fill the vacancy?
So we've already nominated Rich, right? So we don't need to nominate him again,
Yeah,
or
that's
do we need to nominate?
that's the procedure. That's the
Okay.
procedure, and so yeah, we just need to know if there are any nominations
Additional.
for that vacancy. Yeah. So hearing none and having a quorum, then that makes the nomination of Rich official, and he will fill the vacancy through the end of the term, which will the election will be February, and then the term will end on at the end of that meeting. So congratulations, Rich, and welcome aboard.
Yay.
Thanks. I guess I should introduce myself. I live about 3 blocks south of the Oak Ridge, the
Oakdale.
Fred Meyers. I used to have a brain on it. It went somewhere. And I moved to the area a couple of years ago, and been attending these meetings when they were meetings, and then the Zoom meetings. I have a background in working with government, running for public office, and things like that, going back to the 80s. So hopefully I'll be helpful. I'll be a general member, and thanks for the confidence.
Thank you. Thank you for volunteering to serve. We really appreciate it. And let's see, with that, I think our next order of business is a treasurer's update. So Jane.
The Treasury has not moved since the last announcement I made. We've had no contributions and no payments or fees. Our Treasury still stands at $2,212.38.
Thank you. And so now we're going to get into the main portion of our meeting. And so I'll just turn it right over right now to Mark Knudsen. He's with Oak Lodge Water Services Board of Directors. And so I'll invite Mark to introduce himself, and then feel free to share your screen at any time.
Very good. Thank you very much, Joseph, and good evening. I'm Mark Knudsen. I'm a board member with Oak Lodge Water Services. I've been on the board for about a year now. I have a long and I'll just go with long background in water services and water system management and administration. And so I retired not long ago, and opportunity came up to fill a vacancy on the board, and so I stepped forward, and it's been just exciting ever since. I'm also joined this evening with another board member. Paul Gornick is here, and Sarah Jo Chaplin, our general manager, is here. And so Sarah Jo is here to answer all the hard questions that you'll have later on in the program. So with that, I will jump into this and see if we can get the technology to work for us. So we've been pretty darn busy at the Water Services District, and one of the things that we've been working on is improving our engagement with the community and providing probably more complete public information. And so what we have for you this evening is about a 15 or 20 minute presentation that hopefully will tee up some dialogue that we can have. And again, you don't need to have comments tonight as much as just an opportunity to get you thinking. And if you engaged and want to attend a board meeting, we're the third Tuesdays of every month at the Water Services District building, or just send us email, or, and I'll have some contact information at the end. So with that, just, a snippet of background on the district. We're all about providing essential services, water services to the community. And from our perspective, that includes protecting public health, providing excellent service, making smart investments. Water and wastewater systems are very capital intensive. We view those expenditures as investments in the future, but the goal is, of course, to balance that off against keeping rates affordable and also protecting our streams and rivers and keeping them clean. If you're not aware, Oak Lodge Water Services actually provides 3 services under one umbrella or one district. We provide safe and reliable drinking water. We take water from the Clackamas River, treat it, and deliver it to customers. We also provide wastewater services through the collection of sewage and the sewer system. All that water is conveyed to the wastewater treatment plant, where it is treated and cleaned up and returned to the Willamette River. And then we also help to protect the water quality of our local streams and rivers through our stormwater management or watershed protection program. So 3 services under one district. We serve about 29,000 people, extending all the way from the city of Milwaukee on the north end. And so we serve a very small part of the city of Milwaukee, and extends all the way down to the south to serve a small slice of the city of Gladstone, and of course everything in between, and between the river and between Oatfield Heights, Oatfield Ridge. And of course, that service is provided 24/7. The district's board is a 5-member board. We're elected at large to 4-year terms by the community. We all volunteer our time. We don't receive a salary. We don't accept the stipend that we could receive in terms of attending board meetings. And so we are true community volunteers in terms of serving on this board. Pardon me. In terms of the things that we've been up to and some notable accomplishments over the last couple of years, on the drinking water front, we've made significant investments to provide seismic upgrades to the existing reservoirs, and so they now meet current seismic standards. We just completed a water system master plan, and that's a really vital document just to help us identify the future needs, as well as then identify those priorities so that we can begin to plan those investments over time. And again, then that allows us to manage the costs and the rates so that they don't all hit at once. We just completed a project that replaced all of the residential water meters, and those meters will provide more timely data to the customers, as well as helping improve billing accuracy. And that, the bottom line is everybody benefits in terms of having more accurate. And we're also in the process of now starting to replace some of the larger commercial meters. One of the reasons that came about is we also have completed a water audit, where we basically keep track of how much water is going into the system, how much water we're selling through the individual meters, and then trying to figure out what is the non-revenue water. And typically that occurs like leakage, but losses and other unaccounted for uses. And that helps us manage the water resources and control our operating costs. And that's really where this plan to replace some of the larger commercial meters came from. Things that are coming down the road, we want to continue to make upgrades to our critical facilities to improve seismic resilience. But as a result of the master plan, we've also identified areas in the system where we need to upgrade the piping to be able to provide fire flow to help in fighting fires that might occur within the district. On the sanitary side, as you know, we made significant investments in the wastewater treatment plant a few years ago. That plant continues to do extremely well in terms of producing high quality water that's returned to the Willamette. We're able to very consistently meet all of the water quality permits and requirements that come into play. The collection system and treatment system continue to meet all of the needs of the current customers of the district, as well as accommodating the new growth that has occurred within the district. And we continue to make investments in our employees just in terms of keeping them up to speed to meet the ever more stringent, challenging permit requirements that we have to face, as well as investments in getting them to work smarter in terms of things like system maintenance so that we can actually save money through investments in maintenance as opposed to renewal and replacement. We're new projects that we're working on. We're just gearing up to start a sanitary sewer system master plan, much like the water system master plan. We'll be looking at what are the needs in terms of investments in the system, and then how do we identify priorities so that we can time those investments out over time. And of course, ongoing repair and replacement to improve the reliability of the sanitary system. On the stormwater watershed protection side, we continue to meet the water quality requirements of our what's called MS4 permit. That's a water quality permit that's issued by the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality. As you know, we have a fee program for stormwater management, and the funds that are collected through that program are used for water quality monitoring in the local creeks and streams, as well as a program to clean catch basins, and we'll talk more about that in a minute, and a community education program. And we also are working with local businesses through our stormwater cleaning and assistance program to help keep storm drains clean, again, managing water quality of the stormwater system. What's coming forward in terms of stormwater is we want to start talking about options for expanding the watershed protection services. I'll talk more about that here in a couple of minutes, but we think it's a vital need of the community, and we want to make sure that we get community input as well as engineering analysis to make decisions in terms of how the community manages stormwater. And of course, we'll continue to design and construct improvements as needed for managing stormwater runoff. So as we went through the budget process last year, we were kind of, we got an earful in terms of questions and comments and concerns. And so what we wanted to do tonight was share some of those questions, a frequently asked question, and provide some perspective in terms of things that we've done, accomplishments that we've made. One of the most common questions was, with the consolidation of the water and sanitary districts, did it make operations more efficient? And in an answer, in a word, the answer is yes. We've done a lot of things that we're able to take advantage of bringing these two organizations together to sort of get rid of the overlap that existed. But in the process of bringing two organizations together, we also made some discoveries in terms of some challenges that we weren't entirely aware of. So we just completed a fiscal audit, a financial audit, and that identified some pretty significant deficiencies that existed on the financial side of water as well as the sanitary district. Now that we're bringing them together, we've got a very aggressive plan to systematically correct those deficiencies, and it's like a 9-page program in terms of all of the things that needed to be done based on this rigorous financial audit. But the good news is that we're well through that process and should have it pretty well cleaned up within the next couple of months. We also had to bring together two sets of things like financial management systems and how just generally how we did work. We've now completed that process, and we have one set of policies for financial management, maintenance, operations, employee compliance, and personnel policies, all of that has come together, but it was a long and, rather slow process, but we're now realizing the benefits of that. That also allowed us to simplify the organizational structure. Then went through a process to fill the vacancies that we had to be able to get the right staff in the right positions. We've also invested heavily in terms of cross-training our employees so we can take advantage of the depth of the team that we have, so that we don't really have just water or sanitary employees. We now have a team of employees working together that kind of operate cross-functionally to respond to emergencies. And of course, continue to look for other efficiencies and improvements over time. So another very common question was the comment, gee, I thought consolidation was going to save money. Why on earth did rates go up? So I just want to start by pointing out that this last year, the rate increase that the board approved was 0.5%, and that 0.5% increase was earmarked towards an emergency customer assistance program in light of COVID-19. So we've worked very hard at the board level to keep our rates very stable and avoid rate increases. But the fact of the matter is our costs are going up, and the consolidation was very effective in terms of achieving efficiencies that allowed us to not increase the rates as much as they would have without the consolidation. So you didn't really see it because consolidation made it go away, but the fact that we were able to hold rates at their previous level was really a reflection of many of the efficiencies that we'd achieved through consolidation. As I mentioned, our costs do continue to go up. The consolidation was great in terms of achieving efficiencies with the administration of the two organizations, but we still have exactly the same amount of pipe and pumps and water services and sewer connections and treatment plant capacity. All of those costs were largely the same. And we have ongoing maintenance and replacement, renewal and replacement investments that need to be made in the infrastructure that really had no benefits in terms of efficiencies through consolidation. So investment in aging infrastructure will continue to drive future rate increases to be able to make sure we're meeting the needs of the community. And then, of course, our other costs go up just as inflationary costs like new regulations, higher costs for material and services, personnel costs. Those things will continue to drive essentially an inflationary increase in future rates as well. Another question and comment that we heard was, well, what's the deal with the buildings? It was sometimes a little more harsh than that, but the point is that the sense was in the consolidation, we would be able to the community was told we would move all of the staff into one building, be able to sell the sanitary building, and that would result in a significant savings. Now, I wasn't on the board at the time, but in going back and looking at the situation, kind of examining what the boards were told and what the reality is, I'll just put it real delicately, the board was given some very bad information at the time. As we went through and tried to examine how we could put all of the staff into one building, it became apparent that we didn't have accurate information originally in terms of the true costs associated with that kind of migration. They hadn't accounted for all of the office space and functional space requirements. They hadn't included all of the yard storage associated with equipment, things like turning radiuses and equipment maneuvering space. There are some significant complex land use issues and zoning requirements that apply to the water services building. It was going to be necessary to remodel that building. They hadn't accounted for things like the seismic upgrades that would be required, the ADA upgrades that would be required. And so there were a bunch of costs that had not been captured. And so it made it very difficult to sort of swallow hard to the tune of several $1 million to be able to make that investment to move everybody into one building. So what we've done is we're continuing to keep people in two buildings. We've kept the sanitary building, but we're putting it to good use. And so we've got it occupied with staff. They use it on a daily basis. It's obviously just down the street from the water services building, and that allows for very close coordination. And so we're putting it to good use while we can figure out what we do with now this much bigger and more challenging project and balance that off against all the other infrastructure needs that we have for the district. So we're not wasting money, and we're taking the time to evaluate the situation and make a good long-term decision compared to all our other priorities. Looking into the future. So one of the sort of interesting complexities that I wasn't aware of at the time was this issue of coordination of stormwater services between the district and the county. It's complex from the standpoint that in our service area, Clackamas County actually owns and maintains the stormwater system, the surface water system that includes catch basins, pipes, and culverts. It is owned by the county. But the district has a responsibility to work with the county to keep that system clean so that we can meet the requirements of our jointly held, again, MS4 stormwater quality permit. So we work closely with the county, and they're good partners in terms of working together, but there's this pretty clear demarcation of responsibilities where the county is responsible for the kind of the quantity and the infrastructure associated with the quantity of stormwater. And the district is responsible for managing the quality side of that. Now, any water quality problem can be problem, and a quantity problem can become a water quality problem. And so that's where it's complex, and it requires a very close partnership with the county. The district wants to consider the possibility of sort of evolving that role, taking on a different responsibility in terms of how we work with the county to provide additional stormwater management services that provide a little clearer distinction in terms of that relationship. There would be costs involved, and so we'd want to take the time to work with the community, better understand the options, and get some feedback on that before we leap forward with any kind of program that would change that relationship. So for now, it's the district and the county working together to be able to meet those water quality permit requirements. But stay tuned. In the future, you'll be hearing more about this issue. Another very timely topic is, should the district consider changing the governance, the form of governance for the services that we provide? That change of governance would be to go from what is currently a special services district to morph it into a what's called joint water and sanitary authority. Now, they're very, very similar in a lot of respects. They provide the same services. They both would have elected boards. They would involve customers in decision-making processes. They would be, community-owned assets and resources. But one of the interesting differences between a district and an authority is that an authority has certain statutory protections against what's called withdrawal or assumptions by a city. Given the nature of the district service area, we're located between two cities, between Milwaukee and between Gladstone. And with current interest in terms of incorporation of the service area, we think it's important to at least consider the protection that could come from an authority as opposed to the existing special services district. So again, an authority would provide the same services, water, wastewater, stormwater, would have the same process in terms of customer elected board that would do things like set rates and set policies, but it would have this additional protection against being annexed or incorporated. So what are the key features of an authority? Well, the number one issue is this: it limits the risk of withdrawal of customers and assets. And I'll talk more about why that's so important. But it also allows us to continue to focus on the essential services of water, wastewater, and stormwater. And what's really key is then rates continue to be based on cost of service. So Right now, the rates that we set are based entirely on the cost that it takes to provide those services. We don't have additional expenses that are built in terms of things like general fund overhead or franchise fees that would just essentially add to additional costs above that cost of service. It also allows for our existing funds, frankly, you know, quote, money in the bank, as well as our investments in infrastructure to continue to be used and directed exclusively towards water and wastewater services, as opposed to having those redirected towards general fund municipal services as well. We continue to have the public involved in the decision making, but the big difference is what that provides is a very stable, cost-efficient service, because we understand what our customer base is and will be, and what our assets are and will continue to be. So in the environment where we could be annexed or withdrawn or incorporated, we don't know what our customer base is, and we don't know what assets we have fully available to us. And that makes things like long-range planning so difficult. And so much of what we do is based on those long-range plans. So having certainty in terms of what the future customer base and asset base looks like will really be will be key to making effective long-term investment decisions. So how would we go about forming an authority? Well, it's complicated. I've helped another organization do that, and I'll tell you, it's a very challenging process. There's a lot of steps involved in how that happens. Effectively, the authority would fully replace the district as the service provider. The district would dissolve upon formation of the authority, so there wouldn't be any kind of overlap or multiple layers of government here. But the process really needs to be much more of a grassroots process. It would be initiated by the community or potentially through the County Board of Commissioners, but it's really not the district board. The district board doesn't have a big role in terms of bringing that about. So one of the things we're interested in is what questions or concerns the community has about an authority. Is this something that folks have interest in that we should continue to pursue with a community dialogue? And I don't need all the answers this afternoon or this evening, but again, our board meetings every third Tuesday, feel free to get input to us on this question. And again, based on the feedback, I'm sure we'll be talking more in various sessions in terms of potential formation of an authority. The last point I want to make, I'm sure there are folks that are interested. Did the Water Services District provide comments on the Oak Lodge governance project? The short answer is yes. The district board has met and provided some discussion in terms of questions, comments, and concerns related to the governance project. We have now posted our comments on our website. The URL's there, and I'll send the link out in the chat feature here when I'm done. And I'd encourage you to take the time to look at those. We have some concerns. We appreciate the fact that the study is being done, but we have some concerns about both the schedule and the process that's being employed. And so we just want to make sure that folks think about that. In addition, the individual board members also provided some comments because we're also residents of the community, and we just wanted to put that forward as well. So with that, I will shut up and field questions, comments, or concerns, and I will stop sharing my screen. I should ask Sarah Jo, what did I mean to say?
Sarah, did you want to add any comments?
Yeah, I have a comment or a question, actually. You can all hear me?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Commissioner Savas.
Okay. Thank you, Mark, for your presentation. Having formerly been on both the Oak Lodge Water Board and formerly on the Oak Lodge Sanitary Board, I have had obviously some firsthand experiences, and I would love to hear or see some documents or language that kind of address or touch on the comment you made. I think I heard it correctly, that there's a clear demarcation of ownership or a role in there. And I do know that Oak Lodge Sanitary District is a permittee on the MS4 permit, which is the stormwater basically permit for water that is discharged into our streams. Sitting on the board, there were a number of projects that were stormwater capacity related that the district engaged in, Oak Lodge Sanitary at the time. So, and some of those were, you know, I think not only supported by the community and supported by the board, but, you know, obviously there was always a limited amount of resources to do those. So we gingerly and carefully and cautiously and responsibly took care of those capacity issues, if you will. And the district actually engaged in installing those. And I can name several in which there were problems. And, you know, the district added a facility for capacity, and the district engaged in permitting projects and subdivisions basically, and had things like, you know, metering of water in storm events. So it seems like that it was, if anything to me, really always unclear. When I had my hat on as a Oak Lodge Sanitary board member, you know, we tried to work cooperatively with the county. Now, obviously those roles are reversed for myself, but, you know, my goal is still the same, and that is to work together with both the district and the county. A lot of things were built, you know, in the area that we all serve. However, you know, some things were built by developers and not really ever built or assigned or acknowledged or recognized by either the district or the county. So we have a lot of unknown facilities out there that we don't even know about, that we always seem to learn about, that are underground, going through people's yards, and maybe a lot of people don't even know that. So a long-winded response here to say that if you got something that clearly has a line of demarcation as to the role of ownership or the role of capacity versus quality, if anything, I thought it was something as we wrangled with it in years past, it was anything but clear. So I'm not challenging it. I'm just curious as to, and with all respect, and, you know, you and I know each other, I would love to see what we have that again clearly demarks who owns and who does what.
And so I mean, I'm certainly not going to disagree with you, because I think we agree quite clearly that it's complex, and it's not entirely clear exactly where those responsibilities lie, and the investments by district are certainly exactly as you've characterized them. But the existing memorandum of understanding has ambiguity at best in terms of some of the lack of clarity that exists. And so the district has made those investments recognizing that it wasn't entirely clear whether it was our responsibility or it was the county's responsibility. The MOU is very clear that the district is responsible for maintaining things, you know, doing the cleaning associated with the catch basins and so on. But it's not entirely clear who winds up having to replace pipes if they're not meeting the system's need. And that's exactly why we want to pursue this strategy of getting that clarity that doesn't exist today. And that's why I think we would have to not only further dialogue with the county, but also the community, to understand what level of investment are people prepared to make to be able to provide that certainty and clarity, so that there is a go-to organization that's going to be responsible for managing not only the quality, but also the quantity issues.
Thank you, Mark. Cooperation is key.
Yep, absolutely.
I saw Fred had his hand up before.
Yes.
Commissioner Stavis.
10 years ago, so William Wild went to the state legislature, and a bill was passed to give some protection to when there were two districts to prevent annexation of something. Are you aware of that? And you know what that means?
We're aware of that. I think it was Representative Hunt, if I'm not mistaken, who actually was spearheading that effort. But we've asked our attorney to look into that. Basically, the feedback we've gotten and our read of the statutes would suggest that that protection is not particularly protective, I guess is the best way to describe it. So we're aware of the action that you're talking about, but my understanding is that it's not particularly protective. I don't know, Sarah Jo, do you have anything to add to that?
That's an accurate summary. Due to the language choice used, it did not quite achieve the goal of what it had intended.
Thank you for that. I saw Gwen and then Greg. So Gwen first.
Mute.
You're muted, Gwen. Are you able to unmute yourself?
There. Okay. Can you hear me?
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
My question, Mark, is whether an authority would have a different relationship with the county than the district does.
None. There's one other authority that exists within Clackamas County, Sunrise Water Authority. I don't know, Commissioner Savas, they work closely with the county on issues. I mean, the obligations and responsibilities in terms of things like stormwater management, although Sunrise doesn't have that particular obligation, it would carry over and the authority would be created as a joint water and sanitary authority, and state statute provides that a sanitary authority can have stormwater management responsibilities. So we would, I mean, simplistically, not thinking through it and not being an attorney, just seems to me that responsibility would migrate right into the portfolio of the new authority.
Okay.
Greg, you had a question.
I did. So Mark, question is the move to possibly make a district into the authority, is that in response to the Oak Lodge governance investigation?
That's certainly a big part of it, but you also have to, realize that we live in a fairly dense and suburban environment, and formation of a city through, annexation by Milwaukee and or Gladstone could also achieve the same thing in terms of withdrawing customers and withdrawing assets. And so just the goal in terms of certainty of service area, certainty of the customer base would suggest that an authority in our particular setting would make a lot of sense.
But I guess I'm kind of curious about losing customers. Aren't you kind of like cable, where they're granted a monopoly in a certain area? Can you have just like part of your ratepayers fall off, and all of a sudden water from heaven comes down and replaces Oak Lodge water services?
But so the challenge with that is again, I mentioned it earlier, the water is a very capital intensive utility. And to that end, we have a lot of investments in things like the intake, the treatment plant, the pipelines that convey water, as well as things like the wastewater treatment plant. And so there are these large capital assets that have to be paid for regardless of how much water goes through them. Right. And so by the withdrawal of customer base, you lose the opportunity to spread those costs over the entire community. And that drives up the remaining customers, that drives their rates up more than they might otherwise. So Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I guess I'm kind of curious, how would your ratepayers like disappear? They're still going to get water. They're still connected to your pipes. Would you get clipped off and somebody else would provide it?
Potentially. Yeah. So there's nothing that would, and again, we don't know that this is going to happen, but the example would be if Milwaukee wanted to expand and withdraw customers from our service area, they can withdraw the distribution pipes and they could use their own wells connected to their system to be able to serve those customers. And so we have a reduced customer base. We have less throughput through our water system, but everybody has to pay the same amount basically to cover that.
Sure.
So that's, and again, this is not a hypothetical example. These kinds of situations have occurred. It's a very real possibility.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other questions for Mark? You can use the raise hand feature in Zoom, or you can wave at the camera and we'll see you.
And again, I'd encourage folks to not be shy about coming to our board meetings or providing, email comments or online comments, because again, we are the, it is your water and sanitary system, and we want to make sure we're representing your interests effectively.
Can I just add one thing, Joseph, to Mark's point he was trying to make, and to help maybe with Greg's question. The Sunrise Water Authority became an authority primarily for the reason that they overlaid the city of Damascus, or the soon to incorporate city of Damascus and Happy Valley, and not Boring Water, but Mount Scott. Well, not Mount Scott. There was three different water entities that merged into one. And their issue and concern was that they had to put in and acquire a lot of debt. They had a bond for millions and millions of dollars to build all that capacity. And to better make the point that Mark was trying to make, I say that if the city started growing and annexing the area and just left the remaining part of the district, millions and millions and millions of dollars of debt burden would be upon that, what the remaining base is, which is completely unfair. The same thing applies here in the sense that we are indebted in the investments we made at the water treatment plant at Oak Lodge Sanitary or Oak Lodge Water Services today, and so we all have a role in that. So it's important to realize that the economies of scale diminish when you pull the customers away, and that costs everyone else remaining a lot more money.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Savas. Okay. I'll quit talking. I will send out that link on our comments on the governance project. And again, always available to field any questions or comments.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Mark. We really appreciate you joining us tonight, and appreciate the Q&A there. Glad to host you, and we look forward to having you again. And let's see, with that, I'm going to jump back into our presentation. And right now we're going to talk about the long-range planning work program, and as well as the McLaughlin area plan and current MAP implementation team priorities, because those are up for discussion in as early as January before we'll meet again. So first up, the long-range planning work program. This is the county's, what the county long-range planning staff will be working on over the next 2 years. Let's see, I need to get that out of the way so I can read. So every 2 years, we'll go through this process of budgeting, budgeting priorities for staff. And, generally there's been really little budget available for the community priorities, but we give it a shot because sometimes it pans out and we get bakeries and brew pubs legalized, like happened earlier this year, and we get the Park Avenue Community Project funded, and we'll have an update on that later, and as well as some other projects that the county has taken on. And again, these are planning projects, not construction or economic development or code enforcement, and so we're really just focused on planning for this discussion. And so just looking ahead, the current forecast for the next 2 years already includes what the county is calling the Housing Strategies Project, phases 2 and 3, as well as the Bike Pedestrian Master Plan and Transit Development Plans, which were both grant-funded projects. And previous requests that we've had, including from 2 years ago that have not been funded, are some of the McLaughlin area plan priorities, like community design plans for McLaughlin Boulevard, acquiring property or developing new parks and open spaces, identifying strategies to protect and enhance natural habitat, getting CPOs more involved in the land use application permitting process, and things like historic resources and public art. The McLaughlin area plan plays into this a lot because there's a lot of priorities in the McLaughlin area plan that are land use related. And so we're not going to look at that whole thing, but I do want you to, I will call out the land use or planning related projects and programs here. And just for an example, again, we're talking about planning, not construction. So not streetscape improvements, but instead developing community design plans. So some of the planning type projects are, that have already been funded include what's been rolled into the housing strategies, housing affordability, bike ped master plan, the Oglobe Bridge project that we talked about a couple years ago, or in the last couple of years. All of these are McLaughlin area plan projects that were prioritized. And so we need to look ahead. And so again, there's several that we've already requested. These are the current priorities for the McLaughlin area plan implementation team, is to focus on some residential area projects, some McLaughlin area projects, as well as Fred's committee, which is the bike and pedestrian safety and infrastructure, and as well as the outreach committee, which looks to try to do community-wide events. Admittedly, that's not really a planning project, but these are McLaughlin area plan team's priorities right now. Here's some ideas for what else they could be focusing on. And so there's ideas like restoring habitat. And this feels kind of project related. I guess that's why it's blue, but there's still planning things in improving access to the Willamette River and streams, and identifying and designating wildlife and recreation corridors to link parks and waterways, as well as some of the things that we've already requested, like protecting strategies to protect habitat. So these are priorities that, again, we can ask MAP-IT to focus on. And here's a couple others. Creating an inventory of historic buildings, grid of neighborhoods with distinct names to better associate with different areas. It's an idea that I really like, but these haven't been prioritized by the community previously. So a few ideas that we can do is promote the same strategies or the same priorities that we've had for the last couple of years, but also add a couple more. Maybe we look ahead to the next Park Avenue-like project, and that's at Oak Grove Boulevard. Pretty central location, the next major intersection to the south from Park. That other ideas are the wildlife and recreation corridors plan, improving access to the Willamette River. We could do whatever we wanted with these from the previous list that I was showing. These are already projects are identified in the McLaughlin area plan, and so if we wanted to, again, we could just add a few ideas to that list and send it along to MAP-IT for them to consider. So with that, we do have a recommendation. And Jan, really quick, do we have an increase in attendance, or are we still at 18 for voting members? Because I do have a question that we will need to take, or we may need to take a vote. Oops. Back that up.
Joseph?
And Jan, I can't.
Joseph,
Yes.
This is Jane. According to our bylaws, we only need 10 members as a quorum to vote, 2 of which must be board members. So I think we're probably there.
Yeah, the question is whether we need to take whether we can do a voice vote,
Right.
or if we need to do a roll call vote.
I think we'll need a roll call because we have to have 25 members for a voice vote. And we only have 27 participants, some of which don't live here.
Okay, so this will be, I guess if we have a motion, this will be a roll call vote. So this is what we are looking at right now. The recommendation is to forward the McLaughlin area plan ideas to the MAP implementation team as their recommended priorities. And again, the recommendation included, a few suggestions for some ideas, although this could be changed. So I just want to give this some consideration. And again, one option is that we could certainly talk about this at a future meeting. But because MAP is going to be talking about this at their January meeting before we meet again, I wanted to give us the opportunity to take some action on this tonight. So are there any questions? Eleanor?
Yes,
I see
I
your
have a
hand is
question.
raised.
Well, I'm just thinking with the recent Park Avenue study, I'm wondering if there's a way to coordinate the priorities for the Oak Grove Community Council in support of the amazing work that's recently been done with the Park Avenue study. Is there an overlap there or a closeness that could be mutually supportive for the community activities?
In terms of our MAP it priorities?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I suppose that's a good question. The MAP it priority, we're kind of moving on from Park Avenue, I guess. And so the next thing to do would be to focus on the next node. And so, the idea was offered, and so we offered that here in our recommendation that maybe Oak Grove Boulevard is the next node. And if that sounds interesting, then we can forward that recommendation on to MAP it and say that we're interested in taking that next step.
Right.
But in terms of the Park Avenue project, we're kind of moving on, I think.
Right.
Because it's wrapping up.
It's idea of understanding the length of time that things take and how, the Park Avenue is being supported and moved on. And so how is it that we can help that? That was my question of how where's there an intersection of support? So, and if we're moving on from that, great. So.
Yeah, I think, we'll talk about the Park Avenue project in a few minutes. And how we can get involved in the Planning Commission and BCC hearings for that as it moves into its implementation phase. But this is really about looking ahead to what's next.
Right.
And because the Park Avenue project took us several years in a row of asking for it before we got any traction at all, and then it took basically 4 years to complete. Now we really should be in the mode of thinking ahead to what's next and starting to ask for that post haste so that we can get traction on that as soon as possible. Is the idea behind this recommendation.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Are there any other questions right now? Fred.
I like the idea of talking about the next project, but it always concerned me that the Park Avenue, they picked this half-mile radius ridiculousness. So I think it would be good to say, as a focus would be certainly Oak Grove Boulevard, but the limits would be something like Courtney to Concord. And if it's like the way we did the Park Avenue discussion, we decided not to touch the residential areas that were just the commercial zone. So going forward, I would like, if that's what people think we want to do, is have clear defined boundaries of the commercial zones from Courtney to Concord, or should it go to Vineyard, or should it go all the way to Jennings Lodge boundary? What is the good boundary? Certainly, how much should we take on? So my suggestion would be Courtney to Jennings Lodge, the commercial zoning. That would be clear boundaries, clearly what we want to talk, if that's what we want to talk about. And we wouldn't talk about, which we didn't really talk about in the Park Avenue process, the residential zones. If that's, so that would be my comment.
So this would be the whole corridor for you then? Would be your focus rather than doing a node? You'd rather do the whole corridor?
Or a half.
Yeah, Fred.
Or a half. So we
half, but not really a node. You're talking about doing a corridor like project as opposed to a node project that would be focused between, say, Concord and Courtney, which is about a half mile each direction from Oak Grove.
Yeah, so I would either say we want to do the focus would be Courtney to Concord or Courtney to the Jennings Lodge. Do it all or half. That would be my suggestion.
Okay. Valerie?
I would just like to offer just a thought about, I understand the awkwardness of the half-mile radius, but offer a perspective on that. Just having been through this project with Park Avenue. In the McLaughlin area plan, we talk about nodes, and we talk about clustering areas that have distinct characteristics that are, for example, nice gathering places for people, walkable, and a different kind of atmosphere than you might have at some other places along the boulevard. And I think that when we're trying to engage the business community too, and we certainly experience this with at Park Avenue, you know, if there's things that a community wants to do to make things livable and they want to say, we're going to do it down the entire corridor and basically, I think that is much more complicated because there are conflicting interests. If you say we're only going to be, for example, limiting certain kinds of businesses in the node, or, you know, encouraging things for a pedestrian activity area in that node, but there are other spaces between nodes where other kinds of things can occur, I think you have a larger ability to have success. So I want to put that forward. You know, we're really clear that there are some things that we want to do in these nodes that might not be appropriate all the way down because it would really bump up against to some business concerns and needs. So I would advocate for going for the node just around Oak Grove Boulevard.
Fred?
The problem I have with focusing on Oak Grove Boulevard as a node, it's highly developed. Some of it is fairly recent development. It's highly and fairly well built out. There's not much opportunity, in my mind, for significant change there, whereas potentially Park Avenue, which was not a node really, it went all the way to Courtney. There's large properties that are have very little money has been spent or developed in many, many years. So the possibility of doing very much at the Oak Grove Boulevard node, in my mind, is very limited.
Okay. Thanks for your comments, Fred and Valerie. Are there any other questions or comments about this? You know, again, Greg.
I guess kind of the question on a node to me indicates kind of a central area. And when you talk about Oak Grove Boulevard, it's more like a long string. Were you thinking of like McLaughlin and Oak Grove intersection, that area there? Or?
Yeah, this is the McLaughlin area plan. And so it's calling for nodes along McLaughlin.
Okay.
At key intersections. And so we're focusing on the key intersection of Oak Grove Boulevard at McLaughlin.
Thanks.
And kind of a little radius around that, if you know, but Park Avenue focused on the commercial area, but a future project could focus on whatever the community was interested in focusing on around there. So, you know, with that, we, again, I do want to see if there's a desire to either forward some recommendations to map it for their January meeting, or if this is something that we want to bring back to a future meeting for us to have more dialogue. That's certainly an option. So again, just give the opportunity for anyone to add any other comments or questions or motions. Okay, well, I guess we'll kick. Casey, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I mean, I hear both both sort of concerns, and I guess for me, I think about the McLaughlin area, and like, one, I definitely think that there's certainly issues around the node thing and getting everybody, you know, like around the table to have those discussions and make sure that everybody's heard and included. At the same time, you know, if I think about timelines, how long it's taken for the Park Avenue area, and then if we start another node, how long that might take and how long, whatever. I guess for me, if the wording or recommendation could be kind of open in a sense of, if there's a grant potential to do the whole thing, great, let's do that. Or if there's grant potential to do a node, let's do that. I guess for me, it's just sort of making sure that, you know, it's at the front of the table and people are working on it, and whatever chunk we can sort of take and go after. I think that's probably the ideal idea, you know, sort of to go after what everybody kind of wants to do, right? Because I know that if we take off too much, right, we're not going to get anything done. But if we kind of keep pecking at it, I don't know that we're going to get much done either. So just a little comment, yes.
Yeah, thanks for that. And you raise a good point. And so I guess from my perspective, the lesson learned is whenever we draft this request, we want to be loose in how we define the request, so that we want to say we want a node on at McLaughlin and Oak Grove Boulevard, but we don't prescribe exactly the boundaries or exactly, you know, what the project is going to do. We, you know, leave that to the community to define, and don't confine the community to a specific, you know, set of criteria going into a project before they get a chance to even talk about what their priorities are. I think that's the big lesson learned I see from Park Avenue. Eleanor, I saw you raised your hand.
2 points. I think it would be lovely to be able for the Oak Grove Community Council to make a recommendation for MAPID at their January meeting. That's going to take place before the next Oak Grove Community Council meeting, right? Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
So I think that
Yes.
it would behoove us to get on their plan to do that. And Joseph, if it's not uncomfortable for you, I consider you to be so knowledgeable about the intricacies and the interweavings of these things. What do you think is an important project to forward?
The recommendations here are consistent with what I would say. I guess the one thing that I would like to add would probably be this: develop a grid of neighborhoods with distinct names to better associate with different areas. I'm really personally in love as an individual, as a resident of this community. I'm personally in love with that idea. I really want, I would love to see traction behind that, but you know, no one else, I mean, you know, that just seems to be a pet project that I'm interested in, and no one else has really kind of shared an interest in that with me. And so it it's, what I think is interesting doesn't get advanced, as a recommendation,
Right.
it's,
Right.
it has to get recommended from
But-
outside. And so,
I think,
but that would be my thing that I'm personally in love with.
great. Well, I'd like to make a motion then that the Oak Grove Community Council support if you can go back a slide, that the list of recommendations, the prior list of recommendations, with the inclusion of the one about adding the neighborhoods, the grid of neighborhoods, because I too am in love with that. And I think it would be so helpful and so supportive of helping build more of a sense of identity and pride and sense of community in this area. So I'll make that motion.
And so is that are we looking at the
That list,
recommended slate?
yes, with the inclusion with the inclusion of the neighborhood one.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second? Greg, second. Any further discussion? And so we're going to have to do a roll call vote. So I'm going to stop sharing for just a moment so we can try to do this in some logical way. Jan, do you want to take the lead on handling the roll call? You are muted.
Could we just put our hands up and she could read our names?
Works for me.
Jan's muted.
I need Jan to unmute.
Okay,
There
can
we
you
go.
hear me?
Right.
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Can we just do that for the voting members? Could we just raise our hands and you could write them down?
Does everyone know if they're a voting member? Is anyone not sure if they're a voting member?
Casey's not sure.
Casey's not sure. Casey, I think you are, because you've been to 2 meetings this year and you had, and we suspended the 2 meeting requirement this year anyway. So yes, you are. Okay, so do you want me to do roll call excluding you, Joseph?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'm just gonna go in order of how I see you on the screen, not alphabetical. Jim Meyer,
Yes.
Greg Winnison,
Yes.
Mark, I
Aye.
believe you are a voting member.
Yep. Aye.
And that was an aye, okay. Sue Conahan,
Yes.
so that was an affirmative for the motion?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Paul Gornick?
I am in the Jennings Lodge area, not the Oak Grove area.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I don't think you're a voting member, but I was gonna double check my list.
I should not be.
Not voting, okay, good. Mark, you are not, Mark Elliott, you are not yet voting because you haven't been to enough meetings, but you're almost there. Linda Seals,
It's an affirmative.
are you affirmative? Okay, that was a nod, sorry. Yes. Guion Miller,
Affirmative.
affirmative. Okay, sorry, I'm trying to write and look up at the same time. Fred Sawyer?
Nope, I'll help you.
Yes.
Fred is a yes.
Yes.
And John and Janny, I see you on screen.
They're not voting members.
This is our
Our first meeting, so I don't think we're members yet.
Yeah, I have you as
Right.
non-voting, so I'm just making sure you know that. Tom Hogan?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thelma?
Yes.
Okay, great. Sarah Jo?
I don't think so.
You are not a voting member because we have you as Oak Lodge Water.
Yeah.
Jane Civiletti?
Abstain.
Abstain, okay. Valerie?
Yes.
Eleanor?
Yes.
Baldwin?
Oh, we can't hear you, Baldwin.
I didn't catch that. Give me a thumbs up or a thumb down, Baldwin. Thumbs up, okay.
Affirmative.
Affirmative,
Thank
okay.
you.
Rich, you are a voting member now.
Yes, I vote yes.
Okay. Casey?
Yes.
Casey is a yes. Eleanor?
I think we already
Yes,
got
but-
Eleanor.
You already got
Yeah.
Eleanor? Okay, I think she moved around.
Only vote
Uh,
one. Only vote once.
Only vote once. Okay, sorry, my screen moved around. Tom Civiletti,
Aye.
aye. Paul Savas,
Abstain?
did he say abstain?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Susan Casuto,
Abstain?
Lori Sonnenfeld.
I'm not a voting member yet.
Okay, thank you for that. And Dave and Jan Dobek.
Yes,
Is that yes for both of you?
yes, both of us.
Okay, great. Thank
Yes,
you. Thank you.
double affirmative.
Okay, and myself, I vote yes. So that should be the ayes have it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody. I appreciate that. And we're gonna have to do that again here in just a minute, but I appreciate everyone kind of working through, I know the logistics of doing the roll call votes are a little difficult. We're getting used to it. Eleanor, do you have your hand up?
No.
Okay. So we're going to jump ahead to the long range planning priorities. And so we'd heard some ideas come in from the public. One of the things that really stuck out, was this maker spaces concept that was popular with Park Avenue and popular with HDOG when we were doing bakeries and brew pubs, but it didn't quite get into that. So the process here is that we were through yesterday receiving ideas from the public, and we got those together. And so next thing is today we are now reviewing and finalizing our comment there. And so again, the maker spaces is the one that kind of stood out as something that we should recommend. And so here is our recommendation. Oops. Step back really quick. So here's our recommendation is to affirm support for the projects that are already funded, and then reaffirm support for the slate of previous requests that we've sent in that haven't been funded yet. And then to also send in our McLaughlin area plan ideas, and then the maker spaces idea. And then like kind of last chance, are there any other ideas from the slate that we want to consider asking the county to fund next cycle? And so feel free to raise your hand or say anything if you have any comments to add there. So the really the question here is, do we send on this recommended slate and ask the county to fund these over the next couple of years, and kind of knowing that they won't, but we have to keep asking, and we have to get in there and let them know what we think is important, and this is the time to do that. So so here's the question, and the options, go with what's recommended, or amend the recommendation and approve that, or do nothing and bypass the chance to comment this cycle. So those are our options. Is there any questions or comments or motions?
I'll make a motion to approve the recommended list that we have formed.
I second it.
Who
Okay, so we
seconded?
have a motion from Jim and a second from Valerie.
Okay.
Jane, I see your hand up.
Can you go back to the previous slide with the other considerations? I would like to amend that we add the tree protections idea in with the slate.
Jim, how do you feel about that amendment?
I'm comfortable with that.
Valerie is comfortable with that as well. Okay, so we've amended the motion to support the recommended slate plus tree protection. Any further discussion? Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing. We're going to do the same thing again, another roll call vote. So, oops, stop share. There we go. So again, Jan, we'll go through the roll call vote just the same as last time.
Okay. Jim Meyer,
Aye.
Greg Winnison,
Aye.
Mark Knudsen,
Aye.
Conahan,
Aye.
Mark, no, not Mark Elliott, sorry. Linda Seals,
Aye.
Leon Miller. Yes.
Thumbs up, affirmative.
Fred Sawyer,
Yes.
Tom Hogan,
Yes.
Thelma,
Abstain.
Jane Civiletti,
Yes.
Valerie,
Yes.
Eleanor,
Yes.
Baldwin,
Yes.
Rich,
Yes.
Casey,
Yes.
Tom Civiletti. Tom, are you still there? Oh, I see him. He might be muted.
Aye.
Aye, okay.
There we go.
Paul Savas,
Abstain.
Susan Casuto,
Yes.
Dave Dobek,
Yes to both.
and Jan is a yes, and I am an abstain. Okay, so that passes.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate that. I know that took a little extra time, but we're going to cruise ahead with the rest of our meeting and kind of get this out of the way. I know we can. Valerie, we have a Park Avenue update from today.
Yes. So after 15 months of the Park Avenue Community Advisory Committee working together, and we were able to go this morning to the Board of County Commissioners and to present the work that the committee had completed. We made the recommendation that the board move to acknowledge the work of the Park Avenue Community Advisory Committee. And we recommended that the board move the development and design standards forward to the amendment process. And that was voted on, and the 4 commissioners who were present, Ken Hubertson was not present, voted in favor of moving that forward. I want to say that in many ways, the process now just begins. So so for people who are concerned that any design or zoning suggestions that came in the out of the work in the plan are immediately going into effect, that's not how it works. This process allows the public process, which is part of the county planning organization, to start operating. There were some concerns, and we wanted to acknowledge those that came from the business community and from MABA about specific restrictions that were asked for by the community group. In particular, there was a restriction on new auto-related businesses in the node area, and also on storage units, so that it would be more walkable and friendly. So there was some pushback from some property owners, but they will have the opportunity in the process going forward with the county. There will be open meetings. And in addition, the county commissioners asked that there be a parallel process whereby the county commissioners would be making sure that there was a meeting with property owners, and that anti-displacement issues are really important. And we know that Commissioner Savas has been an advocate for anti-displacement work. So that that kind of work will continue to happen. But I tell you, after chairing this committee through the last 15 months, as we had pandemics and fires and you name it, we had it. there's kind of a relief that we were able to take the work there. And just also as a community member, many of you know that we have tried before to get something on its way to the Planning Commission and that process. And this is the first time we were able to get it there. So I think there was a healthy discussion today, and hopefully that all the voices were heard. And Yahoo, I guess that's what I want to say.
We'd like to thank you for your hard efforts, Valerie. Thank you so much for representing us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, Valerie. It's a really important role that you played on a really important project, and thanks for sticking it out and being so engaged throughout that whole process.
Hear, hear.
My pleasure.
Let's see, Fred had asked for an opportunity to talk about a sidewalks funding opportunity, right, Fred? Go ahead and unmute yourself. There you
go. Today, the Oregon Transportation Commission officially kicked off the beginning of the process for the 2024 to the 2027 STIP, which is a statewide transportation improvement plan. Currently, the staff is working on safety. The staff at ODOT is working on developing safety projects and all projects. Currently, update. Last month, there was a fatality, pedestrian fatality at Boardman Avenue, which is slated for a rectangular rapid flashing beacon and sidewalks. Also at Hull, that project goes to construction in June. So with that project, Jennings Lodge will get 1,000 more feet of sidewalks on their section of McLaughlin. So I wanted to thank everybody last year who supported more sidewalks through the Get Moving 2020 process. Although the major failed, we were heard, we were mentioned in the paper, we had an affirmative vote for what we wanted by the task force. So we made a bunch of project thanks to many members of our community who provided emails in support of our need for sidewalks and safe crossings in McLaughlin. And we were the only community in the region that really did this. Since I was the main, since I kind of took on this project, I tracked, asked for the letters and tracked how many people actually did that. And we was, in one level, we were quite successful. So we do not have any projects on the books. So I'm asking for support for a project for finishing the sidewalks on McLaughlin and 3 more pet islands. TriMet has a standard that they prefer to have 780 feet between bus stops. And as it turns out, our pet islands have not been successful since the late 90s when they were built in eliminating fatalities at the pet islands. And we've had other places where actually pet islands in the middle of the block are a better solution than at intersections. There's too much going on at intersections. So I'd like support. So in thinking about McLaughlin, I am suggesting that we request 3 pet islands. one in front of the Bomber. And there's a desire to have a safe pedestrian crossing at every bus stop. So a safe would be kind of defined as a pet island with rapid flashing beacons at intersections, a pet island perhaps by itself, or a signal. So on McLaughlin, we need a pet island, long known, we need a pet island at the bus stop in front of the Fred Meyer Bomber bus stop, basically halfway between Park Avenue and Courtney. Then we have two bus stops between Courtney and Oak Grove Boulevard, very close together at Maple and Chestnut. I'm suggesting we ask for a mid-block pet island between Maple and Chestnut. Then we have two bus stops at Silver Leaf and Risley, quite close together. And I'm suggesting perhaps a mid-block between those.
Is this in response to a public comment period?
Just started today.
Not really. I think we want to ask for, in months and months, we'll have a public comment period probably when they have a bunch of projects that we get to comment on. We want to make sure we get make sure, in my mind, we have asked for the project and get the project on the book so we can public comment in support of it. Without, if the staff doesn't create it, it may not be there.
Would the timing allow for us to receive a proposal from you and share it with our members by email, and then we could vote on a motion in January? Or have you give you a little more time to present, you know, a graphic, you know, like a map that shows, you know, what you're proposing?
Yes. Well, I want, personally, I want to kick off the process now and send emails to every email list we have available. So for individuals to basically forward this to the people I see this as our community council map it, and individuals, I think it's very important to have not just map it and not just community councils, but many individuals, similar to the library process, where many people individually supported over the years Concord and the library. So I think that's my view of what we need to be doing.
Yeah. Okay, so I tend to agree with you. I think that we do want to get out ahead of any process, but if we're not faced with a pending deadline, let's put together a graphic of a proposal that we can collaborate on, and we can share it with our members, and then, you know, do the advocacy that way. It feels like a bit much to try to explain in words and then ask for everybody's support tonight. So let's work on that and come back in January. We'll share that with everybody, if that's okay with you, Fred.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you for that. The STEP is an important process, and we definitely do want to make sure that we get our input into that. And so thanks for tracking that, Fred, and bringing it to our attention. We'll definitely engage on that. Moving on, we're into the announcement stage. I did really want to announce very quickly that Jan had mentioned this briefly a moment ago. Normally every year, you know, we give if voting members haven't been able to attend any meetings, then you know, typically their voting status canceled for the following year. Because of extenuating circumstances, the board, the OGCC board, really declared an emergency and decided that we're going to roll all voting members over, regardless of their ability to attend a meeting this year because of the public health circumstances. So if you had voting member status this year at all, you will also next year. We'll just roll you over automatically. So thanks to our board members for supporting that initiative. It seemed like the right thing to do under the circumstances. And I appreciate that. Are there any other announcements from the floor?
Joseph, would you like to announce that at our next meeting, we'll be taking recommendations for future board members?
Jane made that announcement for me, it sounds like. Our next meeting, we will be requesting nominations for the election for the board of directors in February. And so the election, we will take the nominations in January and then hold the election in February. The new officers will take their positions in March. Any other announcements, Rich?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that the county commissioners had approved the master plan for the Concord School community library project. So it'll be a couple of years before they get to construction, but it's moving ahead, and a lot of people in the community had a lot of input and worked well together to make that happen. That's it.
Awesome. Thanks for that update. Jan, did you want to say anything else about that?
No, I was just waving my hands in support.
Oh, okay. Very good. Any other announcements?
Yes, Thelma would like to make an announcement or a request. Basically,
Please.
The Oak Grove Community Council has always picked some organization to donate part of our money to help out people in the community. I would like to nominate the Milwaukee Lions Club and their efforts to feed the homeless, or not the homeless, the people that need the food baskets that are delivered before Christmas. And I talked to Carol Powers this morning, one of our members of the community council, and she said that they are very short on donations of food products that they can put together in baskets this year. So they would use the money to purchase food to put into the basket. So I would like to make a motion that we donate $500 out of our treasury to the Milwaukee Lions.
I would second that.
Well, third.
Who said that?
Oh, is that Valerie?
That was Valerie. Okay.
So there's a motion from Thelma and a second from Valerie. Is there any further discussion on $500 donation to the Lions? Craig.
So we had said that anything basically over $2,000, we would go ahead and donate. So I guess since we're at about $2,000, since we did donate already, this is about 25% of what we have in there. Is there any risk to any finances we have, or because this does eat into the reserve that we said we would go ahead and keep?
Jane, do you have any comments on pending expenditures?
I do not see any pending expenditures at this point. I feel if we were to get a few donations in the next several months, we would not be at risk.
So if we...
Does that answer your question, Greg?
So you're saying that if we didn't get donations in the next several months, we would be at risk?
Perhaps not. We don't seem to have a lot of expenses coming down the pike.
Our major expenses are like that $50 a year for the website. I mean, there's really not a whole lot
Yeah. I actually am
that we
overdue
have to do.
turn in
Pardon me?
I need to turn in a Wix.com receipt as well, but I think
Okay.
it's 112 or something like that.
There is an outstanding bill for $100. Perhaps I would
So we,
ask Thelma if she might amend to a $400 donation to the Lions Club.
I think the Lions Club would appreciate any donation that you could give them.
Valerie, how do you feel about the, are you okay with the amendment?
We could amendment. I just want to say, as far as I can tell, we've been carrying this large balance for a really long time and we don't do a lot with it. And I happen to know that the outreach work for food is really important in our economy right now. So I would really advocate that we do $500.
Okay, so the motion stands at $500 from Thelma, second from Valerie. Any further discussion? Okay, so again, roll call vote. Jan, take it away.
Sorry, I keep flipping past my list. Should I do it asking if any voting members are going to vote no?
Yes, that's a good way to do it.
Doing it that way. Does anyone want to abstain? Does anyone want to vote no? So that means all voting members.
Oh, I see. Eleanor, your hand.
Eleanor?
I want to abstain. I think there's a lot of other organizations that also need money, and I don't see why we're picking out the Lions Club. There's a lot of other ones as well, so I'm abstaining.
I'll abstain also, I think.
Okay. Anyone else?
Abstain, I'll abstain.
Who's just said that?
Baldwin.
Baldwin, you're abstaining?
Yes.
Okay, it still passes. So that's $400, correct? Or do we do 500?
It was 500.
Okay.
And we never amended it.
Okay.
Thanks, Thelma. Are there any other announcements from the floor? Okay, so with that, I think that we are wrapping up. Oh, the ABCs, we'll send those out in the follow-up announcement. And so here is our upcoming schedule. We'll see everybody again on January 27th, and the board will convene next on January 4th. Everything coming up is all going to be on Zoom. All of our facilities are still off limits for the foreseeable future. So stay healthy and safe, everybody, through the holidays. Glad to see you all, and see you in January.
Happy holidays,
Thanks so
everybody.
much.
Yep. Be well, be safe.
Happy holidays.
Dan, are you still there?
Holidays to you.
Dan, keep singing. Don't go away. Hold on. Where are you? Dan?
Hello?
Oh, Jan, there you are. You're still here. Regarding voting membership, I do not think Tom Civiletti is a voting member.
He was.
Well, a long time ago, but he voted today. You might want to take that vote off.
Okay, I will double check that.
Okay, thank you. And Thelma, you're still here?
I'm still here.
Okay, can you give me information on getting a check to the Lions Club? How would I contact them?
I will do that. Actually, the information is in the CIA newsletter I just sent out.
Okay, I'll look there. Thank you.
Yeah, it's in there.
Okay.
Okie dokie. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
So Valerie and Jan.
Yes.
So we will, the two of us, or the three of us, the two of you and me, the three of us will be meeting on Monday in the normal slot that we would have the board meeting.
Right.
Because we're not having a board meeting, and I wanted to give us an opportunity to just have a little bit of a discussion about how we want the next couple of years to go, since we're the ones who so far have, committed to wanting to, be eligible for the board again next
Right.
cycle.
Is
So
Greg Weddington not re-upping?
yeah, everybody else has said that they're
bailing
not
on
going
it.
to. So
Okay.
so we totally get to the three of us can meet and talk about it, and we don't trigger a quorum requirement. So we don't have to do like a retreat or executive session or anything like that. So I figured we'd just take that time slot and just have a chance to talk with each other really casually and openly about kind of what our I don't want this to be kind of like it is to an extent a postmortem over the last 2 years, but it's really intended to be about looking forward and how are we translating that into what we're hoping for the next 2 years to be, rather than just using it as a bitch session, for oh gee, I wish you would have been more organized in your agenda making, or whatever.
Right.
Why can't you keep a meeting on time? That kind of thing. Maybe we can just do more looking ahead. About how, and really part of this, I think, is, and I feel like this is important for you, Jan, a little bit, is kind of defining boundaries. And it's like, okay, where are my boundaries, and where do I need help, and where, and this is important for me too. That checklist, I think, is going to be really important for us in terms of the board responsibilities checklist, and kind of building that out a little bit more, because there's a lot of stuff that's not there that I do, or that you probably do, Jan. And so documenting that a little bit better, and making sure that we have a primary and a backup for each task, and the backup is checking in with the primary, each month to make sure that, the notifications are going out, that the newsletters are going out, that the agenda is done on time, that, all that stuff that needs to happen on a schedule is that we have checks and balances kind of built in. And then we need to, levy this expectation upon the new board members when we bring them in. But I feel like, because we're the ones coming in as incumbents, that we kind of get to, define those parameters for ourselves right now, kind of as a team, and kind of see how we feel about, about that. And then, when we onboard new members, then, it'll be a little bit,
We're still recording.
well,